Hi, I'm Steve Carlson. Sorry to be so informal today, but it is the Minnesota State Fair time. Wearing this Ameriprise shirt here, I worked there and they said my work was fantastic, outstanding, and I'm glad to have been of help. Today, I want to talk to you about some developments that are very recent. The first is the Minnesota Department of Human Rights bullying of the Rice Creek Hunting Lodge, forcing them to pay $8,500 to two homosexual men. And the second is this Minneapolis woman, accountant, who had this surrogate baby for two homosexuals and then had to sue them to get visitation rights. Now, the upshot of this is not only oppression by the legislature and civil magistrate, but also that it affects us all. In Minneapolis, two homosexuals were allowed to pay a woman, an accountant, to create a surrogate baby, and they supposedly are the child's parents. The legislature made sure we wouldn't know who is the father and who is the mother, but here apparently they're both fathers and they have a surrogate mother. Don't know what Freud would have said about this, but I can tell you what the Pope says. And I quote the Pope not because I'm Catholic, but because I'm Christian, and the Pope is reliably correct and Christian on this issue. Christians, like the Pope, say that the purpose of sex is to produce offspring, to produce human life. He posits that this is a gift from God, that this is part of the miracle of creation, and that we were all created this way. A lot of Catholics and a lot of Christians, and certainly the majority of atheists and other Democrats, don't believe the Pope and think he's crazy and scandalous for continuing to insist on creation after the federal judges have already determined that he's wrong. But think about it. And I mean Hannah Nicollet, too. And when I say this, because I saw her videos under the Happy Pundit name a year before she signed up for the Senate race for the Independence Party. And she says she's a Christian who happens to believe all drugs, not just marijuana, should be legalized, because she doesn't want the state legislating morality. This is not to knock Hannah or mock Hannah, just asking her to listen. It also demonstrates why I didn't want to talk to her or Mark Jenkins and ask them to endorse me for the Senate. I just ran in the primary, and I am gratified that I was elected as the Independence Party nominee for United States Senate on the ballot with Al Franken and Mike McFadden. And I believe I was elected precisely because I am the candidate who has addressed this and other serious substantive issues. So what's wrong with the popular common sense notion that sex is just, well, fun? Sex makes you feel good, relieves stress, it's fun. Well, what we've seen so far is that it leads to viewing women as objects of fun and male pleasure, even status. It leads to pornography and the far-reaching influence of media transmitting pornography at various levels, even politics. It leads to human trafficking and forced prostitution and prostitution itself. But that is all right, we're told by people who say you're a prude if you disagree. And you know what a prude is. It's, again, a woman who doesn't agree with this fun theory of sex. The get your kicks theory. And I won't go over that right now because we've seen far bigger problems. Well, first of all, the DFL said, well, sex is not just fun, it's also a source of votes. And now we can promote homosexuality, the key accomplishment of the Democrats' so-called first black president. Hey, he's not a prude. He attended Jeremiah Wright's church for years and never heard him say a single controversial thing. And that's why he just kept attending. He thought that Wright led him to Christianity. Boy, is he confused. But that's not all. Now listen to this. I heard about this on the Contrary, which generally I can't stand. And I can't stand it because of some of the stupid things I hear on there. For instance, one woman today showed her intelligence by saying she looks forward to seeing Kurdish female soldiers fight the ISIS terrorists. I remarked on hearing that this woman has a very low intelligence level. But I also heard about this woman accountant in Minneapolis on that show and the two homosexuals. Two male homosexuals thought they were rich homosexuals, had been in the closet for years, and now they wanted to be fathers or whatever, parent, you know what I mean. So they paid a woman accountant to become the mother. They didn't really want her to be the mother, just to give them a baby. Maybe help their relationship stay together, who knows, become more meaningful. Well, the accountant felt guilty and confused after she did that, and she sued for visitation rights. And I just thought, stop, wait, this child is a human being, and she's going to grow up, and she's not a male, and she's got two dads or whatever. And they apparently just wanted the surrogate mother out of their lives, you know. But wait, doesn't the word monstrosity come to mind? Monster? Not the little girl. The parents and their so-called relationship. I don't know if they're married, and I just think, don't ask, don't tell, you know. Back to the Pope. He says the purpose of sex is to create human life. The immoral say, wait, no, it's just for fun. And now two guys think it's fun to have sex with each other, which seems pretty weird in the first place. And then part of that fun sex is to pay this woman in Minneapolis to produce the baby for them. So the purpose of their sex, they for some reason think, is after all to produce human life. And so now they're going to pay this woman, and then she sues them. And the DFL is okay with this? Even proud of it? No, this is something the deceiver, Barack Obama, did to Minnesota and the nation. Mark Dayton cannot be proud of this. Barack Obama should be thoroughly ashamed of this. And I think most intelligent Minnesotans will believe that this is an unmitigated disaster. We are trying to survive 8 years of the worst president in history, selected because he was considered black, and he went ahead of Hillary Clinton, who they wanted to make president because she's a woman and she's married to Bill Clinton. And as part of this game plan, he decided to attack our military for don't ask, don't tell, saying they violated civil rights for decades. Obama is wrong about that, and his action is a disgrace. But then to help boost this comeback from the understandable shellacking of 2010 because of his pitiful performance, Obama felt it necessary to say, just as Minnesota was considering this issue because of my 2010 opponent Teresa Collette's initiatives, Obama had to blurt out that it is personally important to him that everybody have homosexuals, we say are married, lesbians, we say are married. Well, my first response is to say, who cares what is personally important to Barack Obama? He stepped into a state issue, and he obviously thinks he's brilliant that he could take an issue which hurt the Democrats in previous elections and turn it into a winner. Of course, homosexuals have infiltrated not only our politicians, but also our courts, and with the help of abusive and unethical lawyers, they cowed the American people in our state not into actually voting for homosexuality, but just having a conversation about it. Well, when homosexuals and Democrats talk about conversations, you can pretty much bet they're talking about conversations in their closets, not open conversations with the people of Minnesota. We have to push back. We need to push back now. You can push back by electing me to the U.S. Senate as an independent candidate, and I can do something about this. First, in 1993, the Congress passed the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, and we need that right now. Now, as far as the issue of the little girl with two homosexual dads and generations of surrogate children who can be well bred, just like her, we can just ban that. I believe this is something which states and even Congress have a right to do. But this second recent development, I believe, can be pushed back on with the Religious Freedom Act. We're talking about the Rice Creek bullying by the homosexuals in the Minnesota Department of Human Rights. Now, in fact, you can also look at the Minnesota Constitution, Bill of Rights, Section 16. That also protects our religion, and I will use it and the Religious Freedom Federal Act to push back against this and ask for your vote. Here's how the Minnesota Constitution reads as applicable. In addition to limiting direct state action to support any religion, our Constitution also protects us, plain folks, against having religion or conscience used to justify homosexual practices and the sacrilege against marriage. It says specifically, Section 16, freedom of conscience. You see, it's freedom of conscience. So you don't need to have any religion to back up your conscience because the Constitution reads, "But the liberty of conscience hereby secured shall not be so construed as to excuse acts of licentiousness or justify practices inconsistent with the peace or safety of the state." Unquote. Dayton and the homosexuality sector of our Minnesota society is violating our Bill of Rights. These so-called couples engage in pure acts of licentiousness. They have sexual practices with each other that are for no other purpose than licentious sex. Therefore, this so-called settlement, which was announced this week in the Star Tribune, and I should say with approval by the benighted Star Tribune, is DFL perversion and tyranny imposed with the force of the state. Now, this little girl who was delivered, signed, and sealed to the two Minneapolis homosexuals, a couple of Minneapolis homosexuals, is not in a condition of peace or safety, nor are a generation of future Minnesotans who would be produced in this manner. And this is also a violation of that Minnesota Constitution. But going back to this Rice Creek affair, that's where this hunting lodge was that has to pay these two guys $8,500 by order of the Minnesota so-called Human Rights Department. This clearly violates the rights of conscience of the hunting lodge, who, because of conscience or offending the conscience of their guests who were hunting, because of conscience and not necessarily any religion, which after all the state is not allowed to recognize, because of conscience not to allow two homosexuals to have a ceremony and go off and say they got married at the hunting lodge. It protects photographers, caterers, and florists who love to participate in the beauty and grace of moments of real marriage bonds between man and woman, not for fun, but for meaning and life, and to produce human life, that miracle of miracles, from being sued by Mark Dayton's and Lori Swanson's and Scott Dibble's Minnesota so-called Human Rights Department. And I want to leave you with a single thought, that in this brave new world, we can turn that miracle into monstrosity. There will be the monstrosity of empty, confused little Minnesotans who will have no parents but the state. Please vote for me. I will fight this. I will protect human life in Minnesota. I'm Steve Carlson, and I approve this message. Until the philosophy which holds one race superior and another inferior is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned, until there are no longer first-class and second-class citizens of any nation, until the color of a man's skin is of no more significance than the color of his eyes. Until the basic human rights are equally guaranteed to all without regard to race.